he doesn't want to understate the achievement on past managers, but this might be one of the greatest managerial performances in Dortmund history. It's quite a statement to make.
This was a team that was down. This was a team that was gone. This was a team, when you saw it, there was body language. You couldn't find any. You didn't need any translators to understand that body language. And a very senior figure in German football told me there is no coach in the world better than Niko Kovač to get into a club to sort things out.
Hi and welcome to the Fussball channel. I'm your host Markus Fjørtoft, and as always joined by Jan Fjørtoft, to Dad, sadly, to summarize the Bundesliga finale. But before we do so, there's plenty to talk about. We're just going to go a quick visit into another country, because you were at the FA Cup final of the weekend along with a couple of other Premier League games, but you were there with a former Eintracht Frankfurt manager, coach, and he won the FA Cup. I mean, it was a glorious weekend for Eintracht Frankfurt in general, but the general alumni, there was a lot to celebrate for the Eagles.
I guess for every neutral this season, Newcastle getting their first trophy for like 100 years, and Crystal Palace never won a major trophy. And of course, Oliver Glasner, I followed his career since he started in Reed. He won as a player. He won the cup twice in Reed. The weekend started for him on Friday when his Austrian club Reed got promoted to the top league. I spoke to him before the game. There were two issues we spoke about. I congratulated him on the Reed win, of course. And then I made him update on the Eintracht Frankfurt game. That was when we arrived at Wembley. But mind you, Marcus, Oliver knew about the result. And when we saw each other just before the game, we kind of took the results. And after the game, although all his thoughts were on the Eagles, Crystal Palace winning against Manchester City, of course, the main thing. But I interviewed him, as I did after the win in the Europa League for Eintracht Frankfurt, which I started by saying is getting a habit to interview after winning a trophy. Very successful, made a plan. Yes, I think the Dean Henderson decision is wrong. He should have been sent off. But then he saved the penalty. Then we can ask ourselves, why didn't Erling take the penalty? Why did Marmoush take that? Marmoush has scored 7 penalties this season. Erling has missed 3. Sometimes we forget that these are not machines. I started to play German now, but we tend to forget that. And I think that was in a moment you're kind of in that decision in the FA Cup final, but. For Erling, who have never scored for City in a final, he has scored for Dortmund, of course, but that was a thing that he could have done. Decided not to do that, and we all have our different reasons for doing that. So at the end, it was the Eagles, and wow, the atmosphere at Wembley, Marcus, it was unbelievable. I mean, there was a National Day of Norway, our constitutional celebration in Norway, and there were red, white, blue all over Wembley. So that was funny. I did an interview. I put what you do in Norway. You put your flag on your left by the heart, but I had to take it off because it looked like I was a Crystal Palace supporter. But I think all the neutrals today. I've got so many friends at Manchester City, of course, but I think all neutrals will say that is a great for a club like Crystal Palace winning that, going straight into the Europa League as well, that Glasner has won before. So a great weekend for Oliver, a great weekend for Crystal Palace, and also a great weekend for Austria, because in the evening they won the song contest, Marcus. This is the first time ever I've heard. I've not heard it. I only saw it, and I waited to the voting. But JJ, I think is his name, won it. So next year, the Eurovision Song Contest in Vienna. I guess you didn't think we were going that road, Marcus, when you asked me that question.
But here we are. But there is a lot to touch upon, including Eurovision, but also one of which being, if we go back to the Bundesliga, is the fact that Eintracht Frankfurt, as part of the real excitement connected to the last match day, because we had the two teams set who were going down in Bochum and Holstein Kiel. Heidenheim had an outside chance of avoiding the relegation playoff, but lost to Bremen. They're going up against Elversberg in the relegation playoff in 3 days on the 22nd of May. That starts. So it was really about the fight for the Champions League. The context being that Dortmund just had to win, or at least win by 2 or 3 goals to be secure. Eintracht needed to get a point, and Freiburg needed to make sure that they won at the very least. And it all looked promising for Freiburg, 1-0 up, and then Eintracht got that vital equalizer that through Ansgar Knauf right before halftime, and then it was all Eintracht in that second half, and they ended up winning the game deservedly. But it was a bit shaky there at the beginning when Freiburg went 1-0 up.
Well, at the end of the season, is always every game, every kick, every goal is decisive. So you have Frankfurt coming into this game just last week. And first they had a match ball in Mainz, if they won in Mainz. Then they had 3 match balls last weekend because Dortmund and Freiburg, they had to win. Dortmund, they were in Leverkusen, ending up winning that game. Not surprisingly, did Freiburg win against Holstein Kiel, but still, that was a big game for them because Holstein Kiel could have done something in the battle of avoiding relegation. And when you went into this game, Freiburg at home, Freiburg had to win. I said before the game, and I said the whole week, I thought that this game could be good for Eintracht because Freiburg had to attack, Freiburg had to go for a win, and Frankfurt, Dino Topmüller has kind of made a team that is perfect of these Schalten, these transaction from getting the balls and then go straight up. But as you were saying, Marcus, when they got 1-0 down, you were thinking, wow, this gonna be that day again. Remember St. Pauli at home last game where they had a chance and so on. But Ansgar Knauf, that goal, I mean, that is a golden goal. And then in the second half, and I was, as I was saying, at Wembley, so I couldn't see all live, so I needed an update. And then these 2 goals with Christensen's goal, then Schiri, was it 3 minutes? Mm-hmm. So when I had a look at the phone again, then it was 3-1. I couldn't believe my eyes. I just hoped it was 1-1. That was my hope when I went into it, because a 1-1 would have secured a Champions League place anyway, and 3-1. But I wasn't sure before the end, Marcus. I was always there. I was always thinking that something could happen. But big compliment to Eintracht Frankfurt getting themselves into the Champions League. I think this is the 7th time in 8 years they've been in Europa. They've been in Champions League before, but they got that place because they won the Europa League against Rangers. But now being third on the table is a fantastic achievement from Dino Topmüller, Krösche, Hellman, the whole Frankfurt team, and of course the players.
Yeah, it was the first time they've qualified for the Champions League through their league position, because as you say, they won the Europa League, but first time they qualified through their league position for the Champions League in 30 years. I mean, it was fantastic to see. I mean, we've talked about that. We recommend the conversation that you had with Eintracht CEO Axel Hellman as well, in terms of how they've progressively built their club. And then we can go into depth about that perhaps on a later note. But my favorite part about the whole day was the celebrations from the Eintracht players that followed. They went to for some reason, everyone had put on their sunglasses. So everything looked very slick. You had Arthur Theate there amongst the ultras who was celebrating. You had them at the petrol station. It was just a really good vibe, and I loved following the players on that as well. It was a special feeling, and of course we are both Eintracht fans. It was just fun to see, and to see them in the Champions League now, it will be so special. And then we also have to acknowledge Freiburg's efforts as well, ending 5th, which by all accounts going into this season is a tremendous success. Julian Schuster took over from Christian Streich after 14 years, in which he had overachieved really with this club, but they've built themselves up. It's a relatively small club. I say that in the context of the area and their previous achievements, but getting to the Europa League, a fantastic achievement as such. Really, the first proper managerial job for Julian Schuster as well.
Well, yes, they have a tradition there. They have always had coaches for ages. Streich was there as a junior coach. He went into being a first team coach, and Schuster has done a fantastic job. Great achievement. If I can put them in a package with, we'll talk more about Dortmund later, of course. But I mean, Mainz as well. Mainz
Yep.
getting into Europa League. Bo Henriksen has done a fantastic job there. 8 wins on the road, which just shows you that they have had a great season. They have a great system there. And when we then think that RB Leipzig, they're not even into Europe, and Freiburg and Mainz are, so it's a fantastic achievement. And also when you see the Marktwerte, the values of the players, they have overachieved, and Eintracht have overachieved as well, because I beg you to notice that they sold the best player, the biggest scorer, the biggest goal scorer, the most assists by Eintracht, Marmoush. They sold him in January. So the last 17 games, they played without him, which tells you a team that is good organized, a team that knows what they're doing on and off the pitch. I've said it before, I say it again. They are the best of the rest. Because in terms of turnover, they will never be close to Dortmund and Bayern. But still, wow, they're doing fantastically there. And I think it's one of those weekend. I'm not saying that Crystal Palace is a great organized club, great ownership. Steve Parish is one of the good guys in football. I love to meet him. He's so open. I don't know him personally, but he's always so open when you meet him. And in the same with Eintracht, I think that these stories need to be written. Eintracht is a good organized club that's get into Champions League and third in the league after Leverkusen and Bayern. A fantastic achievement.
And great examples of good club models. There is different ways to do it. We see a lot of state-run money. We see a lot of multi-club ownership models, etc., etc. And you look at the way these clubs are run, and yes, we can only go back as far as last season under Mainz when they looked like they were Zweite Bundesliga bound. But you get a good manager in, you get a few good players, and then as Eintracht, Freiburg are good examples of not the most sensational of clubs in terms of stature per se, but run well, run humbly, run with a certain plan in mind, and then you see what happens, and you get the Champions League, and then you get the Europa League, and you're able to build foundations without getting too ahead of yourself. Perhaps a club that got a bit ahead of itself and has tried to maintain that level for the long time is Borussia Dortmund. And we've talked endlessly about Dortmund, and they've been the perennial challenger to Bayern, and to varied success. They've been able to do so, at the very least being the second club. Been tougher for them this season, Dad. And I want to prompt you by saying that Lars Ricken, the CEO, said that he doesn't want to understate the achievement on past managers, but this might be one of the greatest managerial performances in Dortmund history. It's quite a statement to make.
Well, it's a statement you do in emotion kind of situations, because Dortmund have won the Champions League with Ottmar Hitzfeld. They had a fantastic period with Jürgen Klopp. They even had a period, and Terzic took them to the Champions League final. We shouldn't forget that. That's 1 year ago, by the way. But it makes it an achievement. I think what Lars Ricken alluding to is that this was a team that was down. This was a team that was gone. This was a team, when you saw it, there was body language. You couldn't find any. You didn't need any translators to understand that body language. And a very senior figure in German football told me there is no coach in the world better than Niko Kovač to get into a club to sort things out. And I think that sentence says it all. Sort things out.
And that's what they wanted, right? Dortmund said that.
They needed it, and they wanted it, and they needed that. And he came in. He was in 3 Pokalfinale, 3 cup finals in a row. Had a success with Eintracht Frankfurt, of course, back in the days when he went to Bayern. I got to know him. I played against him, and I've said that before. He's a good football friend of mine, and I met him, and I've said again, Norway beat Croatia. He was fired from that job. Couldn't lose to Norway, could they? And I followed his career, and he's a strong-minded man. He's a hard worker. He's a good organizer. and take them into Champions League. That is an achievement. I mean, we can't discuss if it's the biggest achievement, but I do understand where Lars Ricken is coming from, because he knows what was going on at Dortmund. They were gone. They were gone. They were going into no man's land, and it's unbelievable that he managed to do that after the two last games. Okay, winning at home this weekend was okay, but imagine the farewell party of Xabi Alonso, and he had to win, and he ended up winning. I mean, that is an achievement.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, and I think you make an important point there, because Lars Ricken will know better than most what the situation was at the club.
Oh, he chipped the ball in 1997, by the way. That was a quite big. That was his way into to the business. But yes, Marcus, as a CEO, he knows how far behind the club was, in what situation they were in.
Yeah, exactly. And Nuri Sahin came in, obviously, and won 7 league games under his charge, recorded their first away win not until December. And then, maybe a bit surprisingly, he got the chance to kind of regain the trust into the Rückrunde. 4 losses in a row. In comes Kovač. They're in 11th spot. Bit of a shaky start for Kovač, in the sense that they lost to Stuttgart, Bochum, Augsburg. But in the last 8 games of the season, they've been unbeaten. They've won 7. The draw came against Bayern Munich. They won against Leverkusen. Like you said, Dortmund were desperate for someone to come in. They acknowledged their softness in as such. They thought, okay, let Kovač make us tougher. Let us find some sort of resurgence under someone who we think we can deliver that toughness in a way. And he sure has. One example being the fact that Dortmund were one of the poorer runners in the league. Against Leverkusen, no team ran more. They come better on the breaks. They've been better at taking their chances, and they've had players that stepped up. Guirassy has scored in his 5 last games. Adeyemi's been good. Sabitzer was man of the match against Holstein Kiel now as well. Niko Kovač deserves respect, and perhaps he's been a bit underrated, underappreciated as such up until coming to this job. And what a massive achievement this is for Dortmund. On the flip side, you have someone like RB Leipzig then not making Europe at all, which is a disaster for them, simply because of the financial implications it has. Also, what players were leaving, Šeško, Xavi Simons, while Dortmund have the Club World Cup and can build. And that settles the European chase, Dad. Just quickly on Bayern, who celebrated the Marienplatz. I feel like they've had the most fun 2 weeks in football that you can imagine. Ibiza, little celebration with Müller. It's just, I am a bit envious actually of these 2 weeks where you won the league, you enjoy yourself, and then they go on and win 4-0 away to Hoffenheim while they're at it as well.
Yes, and we are all desperate, and I say all, to find something wrong at Bayern. But we have to. I was skeptical of the company before the season. Absolutely, I only thought he had a plan A that he did in Burnley, but he has done this season great to have them back. And I think your description there was good. In the Bundesliga, they've been very, very good, and they have delivered. And now you have this Ibiza trip. They come back winning 4-0, like Thomas Müller said. Maybe they should learn from us. Go to Ibiza if you want to win 4-0, and all those kind of things. So I think that what Vincent Kompany has managed to do at Bayern is to they're fun to watch. The players deliver. He has found systems. He have had players out. He still managed to juggle them around. Also, when they were all there, some players have had great season. Olise being one of them. Wow, he must be in. We have to do the team of the season at some point, Marcus. Olise got to be in there. Harry Kane, the zweite Torjägerkanone, so top scorer of the Bundesliga, 2nd year in a row. And you go so many. Musiala been out for a while, but still we know what he can do. There will always be a doubt. And Übrich, that had to be a replacement for Manuel Neuer, has been out for a while. There's always been a thing. And Joshua Kimmich, I have to stop now. But there'll be so many good performances. And Kompany, I have to respect him, because in the terms of, it's not easy to be a Bayern coach, because it's so much more than being a Bayern coach. You have the pressure from inside. You have, of course, the pressure from outside. But he has showed great leadership. So yes, there was some results, especially in Pokalspiel against Leverkusen.
Mm-hmm.
That it's always the double will be the target for Bayern. in the Champions League, they had Feyenoord game, they had the Barcelona game, and that just to show the standard that is expected at Bayern. And the Inter game, to be fair to them, they could have gone through that. So company, there is a Note system in Germany going from 1 to 6, and the 6 being the worst and 1 being the best. I will say that the company will get a 2 for this season because believe me, it's a big pressure to be a manager or coach of Bayern Munich, and he has done that. And as you were saying, Marcus, then after the game, they went to the Marienplatz. They are standing on this Rathaus by the council, big house there. People who've been in Munich know where I'm going, but yeah, they've had a fantastic, and that's Bayern too. Sometimes we kind of like to put people in a drawer, say people that Germans are like this, the German clubs are like this. That's also Bayern. They've always been good to celebrate, and wow, have it had a lot of things to celebrate the last 50 years.
And worth noting that the Bayern Munich women's won their first ever double as well, so they were part of the celebrations there. Bayern this season in the Bundesliga, 2 losses, 82 points, 99 goals scored. That's as solid as you can ask for. And there's an argument, and we will have a special episode on Wednesday where we'll be giving out some official awards. Is there a claim that he was manager of the season because of that? But there are other good candidates. But in the Bundesliga, Bayern have been very, very strong. As we get towards the end here, and this is where we get into the relegation playoff in Zweite Bundesliga, like I said initially, or in the beginning of the episode, Heidenheim play Elversberg, which is a bit of a fairy tale matchup to get to the Bundesliga. Heidenheim, Elversberg, just hear that one out, competing for a Bundesliga spot. Heidenheim, second season syndrome in a bit, compete in Europe. They looked done and dusted at a point there. They started the season very strong. But they've been able to cling on. And the fact that, like Frank Schmidt said, they have 2 more games to fight for the Bundesliga spot. Who would have thought that they could be in that position to begin with? I think that added a bit of perspective. And then Elversberg, they haven't played higher than the 3rd tier since until 2023. Was able to gain that last spot after beating Schalke away, which is fantastic. And then, in terms of who won the Zweite Bundesliga, Köln are back up, Dad. Köln, the mighty historic club, are back up. Hamburg lost to Greuther Fürth, so if they would have won, they would have won the league, which they didn't, kind of course. But Köln are back up to the Bundesliga, straight back up after getting relegated. And the Bundesliga is richer for it, I'd say, Dad.
I think that the management of the Bundesliga will be very, very happy to get, or I know they're very, very happy to get Köln back, to get Hamburg back. I got a feeling that Elversberg will go through because somehow in the German Bundesliga you always have one team that come from nowhere and go in there. But let's see. Frank Schmidt is a good manager. Let's see what will they do. But I guess I will end the show or our episode, Marcus, by doing Frankfurt again, because it was a great weekend for former Eintracht Frankfurt coaches. You had Kovač, of course, doing that for Dortmund. You had Glasner doing it for Crystal Palace. Funkel, who took over from Struber only for the last 2-3 games, won both, secured that place. Feel sorry for Gerhard Struber. I know Gerhard Struber from his time at Red Bull Salzburg when I worked there, and I feel sorry for him because he will probably say, rightly so, that they will still want to manage it. But Köln is a fantastic place to go. It's a fantastic place to play football, Marcus. The atmosphere there is fantastic. I remember I played there. I remember that with great. And when we were there, good to be back. They have their goat, the mascot goat, going around on the sideline. So this is great. It's going to be interesting now. Funkel, I haven't read any 100% confirmation that he will stay on as a manager, but he's an old fox. I think he will like to do this at the end of his career, or it seems that his career never comes to an end. But great to have those 2 team back.
Yeah, I think if my facts are correct, this is his 7th time getting promoted to the Bundesliga, which is a record, which is an expert. And then it makes you think, okay, will he be the one who takes them into the new Bundesliga? There have been reports of Urs Fischer, who we obviously know from Union Berlin, who took them from promotion all the way to the Champions League. Could be. a viable candidate. But the Bundesliga, like I said, are richer for it, of them coming up. And we will have a special episode on Wednesday to tie all this up and hand out awards. Worth also mentioning towards the end, unless he returns to Dortmund for the Club World Cup, it seems to have been Mats Hummels' last club appearance as well, or appearance overall. 645 professional club appearances, including 508 for Borussia Dortmund. Left a legacy I think few defenders can match, as he said goodbye to Roma and potentially even football from the World Cup champion.
Got a feeling that Hummels will be back for the Club World Cup doing that. He's a guy that he loves his football. He loves Dortmund. Was also a great farewell to a ciao to Ranieri in that Roma game. I saw those photos. And then a bit fun fact at the end. I think there's only two that done that before, and I should of course known who that was. But Übrich, he won the Zweite Liga and the Erste Liga, so he got 2 trophies. It was like unbelievable, and he's done well. The young kid. They have got so many keepers on their books, Bayern, but it seems that he'll be the guy at the front now. And we started by Crystal Palace, and you saw by Dean Henderson that you have a goalkeeper back there with that presence, with that self-confidence. I remember I went to Chris Wilder once, and you remember when Dean was at Sheffield United, and he did so well at the Under-21 Championship. And I asked Chris Wilder, so he said, so I called him up and said, congratulations to your performance. And I said to Chris, so what did he say? And he just said, yeah, that's my level. That's what I do. That's what I do. So great confidence for him. Great confidence from Übrich as well, replacing Manuel Neuer and being there, have a cool head, the games that he's been required to do for Bayern. So it's been a great Bundesliga season. And of course, Marcus, we have got Eintracht in the Champions League. I'm so delighted. I'm so delighted for the people there. I love my people in Frankfurt. I love to be there. I love the club. Getting closer and closer relationship to them the last years after I played there like for 100 years ago. And I will recommend the chat we had with Axel Hellman, one of the good people in this branch and one of the good people who knows the business most. So I will ask people to check that out. It's a very open interview that I had with the CEO. And you, Marcus, at that time behind the cameras and cutting. So thank you for that as well.
You are welcome. You are welcome. And with that, we conclude the 2024-25 Bundesliga season, but there will be plenty of football going in the summer. There will be a Club World Cup with German teams involved, of course. So we thank you for following us along for this season, but we will be back very shortly. But for now, auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen, and we know it won't be the last one. We'll do one on Wednesday for the season, and we will do it all through the summer because there's a lot of things going on, as Marcus is saying, in football. So we won't stop, even if the Bundesliga stops. We will go on till the next season and the season after that, Marcus. So auf Wiedersehen.